Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to understanding some of the, well, most complicated and high-stakes projects in the decentralized world. Sometimes when you look at these projects, you don't just see code, you see basically a soap opera. And today we're unpacking one of the wildest ones, SushiSwap.
That's absolutely right. SushiSwap, or SU of SUSHI, I mean, its history includes audacious market moves that some called theft, a founder who briefly looked like he did a multi-million-dollar rug pull only to return the money, plus constant leadership crises, and now a really fundamental legal challenge from the SEC. It's the ultimate DeFi survival story, really.
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming trying to keep track of its innovations versus all the scandals. So our mission today is simple. Cut through all that noise. We're going from SushiSwap's, let's say, chaotic beginnings right through to its current, very ambitious multi-chain strategy. We really need to answer what problem it solves for you, how the underlying tech actually works, and maybe most importantly, why its battle with regulators matters for the entire DeFi space.
Exactly. We've dug through everything, the white papers, the news, the regulatory filings. You're getting the clear, concise overview. Let's jump right in. #tag1, the problem SushiSwap solves.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Before we even touch the market drama or the tech, what was the real gap SushiSwap wanted to fill when it first launched? What problem were they trying to solve?
Well, it was positioned as sort of a revolution against the established DEXs at the time. See, when the first big decentralized exchanges like Uniswap got really dominant, they became incredibly powerful. But they were missing a couple of key things.
Okay, like what?
Primarily, community ownership and any real mechanism for revenue sharing.
Right. So the people actually using the platform, providing the capital, the liquidity providers, they weren't really getting a piece of the pie, were they?
Precisely. That was the frustration. So SushiSwap burst onto the scene in August 2020 as a direct, very aggressive challenge. It basically declared itself a truly community-owned, decentralized exchange. The promise was that the benefits, the revenue generated, would flow back to the token holders. That was the first pain point they tackled.
And looking bigger picture, the whole idea of a DX, any DX,
Right.
is to solve the centralization issue, isn't it?
Absolutely. The broader problem is offering a censorship-resistant alternative to the centralized exchanges, the CEXs that run so much of finance. With SushiSwap, the idea is peer-to-peer trading, where you, the user, keep full control over your assets, verifiably.
So no middleman, no custodian holding your funds.
Exactly. That's the core DeFi principle.
Okay, I get the original mission.
Yeah.
Community swaps. Has that mission grown since, 2020?
Oh, dramatically. They quickly realized that the modern DeFi user needs more than just swapping tokens. Their goal evolved. It became about being the, quote, one-stop shop for all your DeFi needs. They saw users getting frustrated hopping between platforms, one for swaps, another for lending, maybe a third for launching new tokens. SushiSwap wanted to integrate all that.
Like different departments in one store.
Exactly. One seamless experience. That became the new vision.
That one-stop shop idea is great.
Mm-hmm.
How should we picture that practically?
Let's run with that story idea. Think of SushiSwap as a decentralized, community-owned financial supermarket. You walk in, the aisles, they're all your different financial needs. The basic counter, maybe the deli, is for currency exchange that swaps. But then you've got, the lending department over here, the investment launchpad maybe in the back for new projects, even a cross-chain department to move money between different branches efficiently.
Okay, a full-service financial hub, basically.
That's the goal, a complete ecosystem.
I can picture that. But their grand opening wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it? It was more like, a hostile takeover, the infamous vampire attack. For anyone who wasn't around then, what exactly happened in August 2020? It sounds dramatic.
Oh, it was. It's become crypto legend. SushiSwap was a fork, meaning they copied Uniswap's open source code, and then they just went straight for their customers aggressively. They launched this mechanism, basically offering massive rewards in their new SUSHI token to anyone who would move their capital, their liquidity, from Uniswap over to SushiSwap.
So, hang on. If I had money staked on Uniswap, SushiSwap was saying, hey, bring it over here, stake it with us instead, and we'll shower you with valuable new SushiSwap tokens.
Exactly that. It was a huge, incredibly effective bribe, basically. And then the clever part of the project used those staked Uniswap liquidity tokens to automatically pull the underlying assets, ETH, stablecoins, whatever, out of Uniswap's pools and migrate them into identical pools on the new SushiSwap platform.
Wow. How much are we talking?
Within just days, estimates range from $840 million up to maybe $1.3 billion in liquidity was just siphoned over.
That's incredible. Ruthless, maybe, but it
Yeah.
certainly showed the power of incentives in DeFi. Liquidity wasn't
It's
loyal.
not at all. But then, almost immediately, the whole thing nearly blew up because of the founder, the anonymous chef Nomi. Let's talk about that $14 million sell-off.
Right. The rug pull that wasn't quite a rug pull.
Kind of. Chef Nomi controlled the development fund, which got about 10% of all the new SUSHI tokens being created. In early September 2020, right after the vampire attack success, Nomi sold that entire allocation, cashed it out for about $14 million worth of Ethereum, and seemed to just walk away.
Wait, what? The founder just ditched the project and took millions right after pulling off this huge maneuver. That must have absolutely tanked the price and everyone's confidence.
It did. The token price crashed, maybe 50% almost instantly. Looked like a classic rug pull. Should have killed the project dead. But here's the twist, the thing that really defines SushiSwap's resilience. The community backlash was immense. Under intense pressure, Nomi actually returned all of the $14 million back to the project treasury,
No way. He gave it back.
every cent.
Mm-hmm.
Then he handed over control of the keys to the multi-signature wallet that controlled the project to Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX fame, who then quickly passed control to the DAO, the community itself.
So the community basically forced the founder out, got the money back, and took decentralized control. Was that the moment it became truly community-owned?
Absolutely. That whole episode, surviving that betrayal, established that the SushiSwap DAO, the community, was actually more powerful than any single founder. It proved they could survive almost anything and cemented that community control, letting them focus on building the actual infrastructure.
Okay, so that chaotic start kind of forged their resilience.
Yeah.
If they wanted to be this functional financial supermarket, they obviously needed really solid tech behind the scenes. Let's simplify that infrastructure. How does this whole big system actually run efficiently day to day?
Right. The key piece here, the sort of a central nervous system, is called bento box. You can think of bento box as like the main vault or maybe the operating system for the entire sushi ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's all about capital efficiency and lowering costs for the user.
And how does it do that? Like, practically, what's the difference for me if I use it?
The big thing is the single deposit approval. You deposit your assets, your ETH, your USDC, whatever once, into bento box. After that one approval, those assets are instantly available to use across all the different SushiSwap products. Kashi for lending, Furo for token vesting, you name it. You don't need to approve every single little interaction separately.
Oh, okay. So instead of paying gas fees for maybe 5 different approvals if I want to lend, then swap, then provide liquidity, I just approve once up front?
Exactly. And on expensive networks like Ethereum mainnet, those gas savings can be really significant. It streamlines the whole experience.
But wait, if everything's in this one big bento box vault, doesn't that make it a massive target, like putting all your eggs in one basket?
That's definitely the trade-off. It concentrates risk, which is why rigorous security audits are absolutely critical for something like bento box. But the benefit is huge savings and efficiency. And what's really clever is that the capital in bento box doesn't just sit there doing nothing. It's often used in the background to generate passive income, usually through pretty low-risk strategies like providing flash loans to other protocols or earning yield somewhere safe. So your capital is working even when you're not actively using it.
That is clever. Idle capital is wasted capital. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned expensive Ethereum. They couldn't stay just there if they wanted mass adoption, right? How important is their multi-chain approach?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. They realized pretty early on that just having deep liquidity on one expensive chain wasn't the winning strategy long term. So they went for really aggressive multi-chain expansion. SushiSwap is now deployed on, I think it's over 40 different EVM-compatible networks.
Wow, 40. So places like Polygon, Arbitrum, Base, Avalanche.
All those, yeah. Many more. It makes SushiSwap highly accessible wherever users actually are. Cheaper fees, faster transactions.
But okay, if they're spread out everywhere, doesn't that create another problem?
Yeah.
Like, my money's stuck on Polygon, but I need it on Arbitrum right now? How do they handle that inside their supermarket?
Good question. That's where SushiXSwap comes in. It's their cross-chain bridge function. It's built using tech like Layer 0, and it basically lets you swap assets between completely different blockchains in ideally a single transaction from your perspective. It tries to hide all the messy bridging complexity behind the scenes.
Okay, so it smooths out moving assets between chains. That solves a major headache for a lot of DeFi users.
It definitely aims to. And then finally, to make sure that when you do make a swap, you're getting the absolute best possible price. Considering all those 40 plus networks and hundreds, maybe thousands of different liquidity pools, they use their new Route Processor 6 or RP6. Think of it as a super smart price comparison engine. It scans all available liquidity sources across multiple chains to find the most optimal path for your trade, ensuring you get the best execution price available anywhere within the Sushi ecosystem.
So it's like Kayak or Google Flights, but for crypto swaps across chains.
That's a great analogy, yeah. It finds the cheapest, most efficient route. Hashtag tag 4, practical user benefits. Why you care.
Okay, we've got the tech foundations laid out. Bento box for efficiency, multi-chain for access, SushiX swap for bridging, RP6 for best price. Let's bring it back down to earth. For the average person using SushiSwap, what are the tangible, practical benefits they get from all this complex architecture?
Well, the primary benefit, and this ties right back to their original philosophy, is the shared ownership and passive income. This comes mainly through the SUSHI token mechanism. If you have SUSHI tokens, you can stake them, lock them up in the protocol. In return, you receive XUSHI.
Okay, I stake SushiShai, I get XSUSHI. Why do I want XSUSHI? What does it do?
It represents your share of the platform's success. Here's the key part. 0.05% of all trading fees generated across the entire SushiSwap protocol. That fee is used to automatically buy back SushiShai tokens from the open market. And those bought back tokens are then distributed proportionally to everyone holding XSUSHI.
Ah, I see. So as the financial supermarket does more business, processes more trades, it generates more fees. A slice of those fees buys SushiShai, which then flows to me as an XSUSHI holder. My XSUSHI becomes worth more SushiShai over time.
Exactly. You get a direct passive income stream that grows as the platform grows. It aligns your interests with the protocol's success.
That sounds great, but isn't that exact mechanism giving token holders a share of the revenue, the thing that might get them in hot water with regulators? We'll get to the risks soon, I know.
That is precisely the regulatory tightrope they're walking. It's the core benefit and potentially the core risk. Another huge practical benefit, touching back on Bento Box, is the reduced friction and lower transaction costs. Like we said, that single initial approval saves you from paying gas fees over and over again for different actions within the ecosystem. In the often expensive world of DeFi, that makes a real difference to your bottom line.
Makes sense. Cheaper and simpler is always good. And what about Kashi, their lending product? You mentioned it earlier. Why is its isolated model a benefit?
Right, Kashi. This is pretty innovative compared to older lending platforms like, say, a Hive or Compound in their V1, V2 stages. See, traditional platforms often pool all the deposited assets together into one giant pool. The risk is if one particularly risky asset listed on the platform suddenly crashes, it could potentially drain the entire pool, causing a cascade failure affecting everyone, even those who didn't touch the risky asset.
Like one bad apple spoiling the bunch.
Exactly. Kashi prevents that. It uses isolated lending markets. Each lending pair, say lending Link to borrow USDC or lending WBTC to borrow DAI, operates as its own completely separate, self-contained market.
Ah, okay. So if some obscure, super volatile token pair collapses on Kashi, it doesn't drag down the main ETHUSDC market with it.
Precisely. The risk is contained within that specific pair. This isolation prevents system-wide contagion and allows SushiSwap to be much more adventurous, listing a wider variety of potentially more volatile or newer assets for lending and borrowing without jeopardizing the whole platform's stability. It increases the options available to users safely. Hashtag tag 5. Existential risks and criticism.
Okay, so they've built this impressive, resilient system technically.
Yeah.
But it seems like SushiSwap is constantly dodging bullets, either from internal drama or external threats. Let's talk about the flip side. What are the big, maybe even existential risks hanging over the project according to the sources?
Well, the biggest internal weakness, arguably, is what you could call chronic leadership instability. It's been a recurring theme throughout their history. The project just seems to suffer from this revolving door at the top. We saw the somewhat controversial exit of a very popular early contributor, ZeroXMaki, and the current head chef, Jared Gray. Well, he's faced quite a bit of controversy himself. There were accusations about his past projects, and more recently, a significant issue where he apparently used the project's main multi-sig wallet to influence a DAO governance vote in early 2024.
Oof, using the treasury keys to sway a vote. That doesn't exactly scream decentralized governance.
No, it caused quite an uproar. This kind of constant turmoil at the top really erodes trust, both within the community and externally. It makes strategic planning and execution much harder.
That internal instability is definitely a problem. But the biggest shadow looming over SushiSwap right now seems to be external and, frankly, pretty scary. The regulators.
Absolutely. You called it the regulatory Damocles sword earlier, and that's a perfect description. In March 2023, the SEC officially issued a subpoena to SushiSwap and its leadership. That kicked off a formal investigation, and the stakes here are, well, they're massive, not just for sushi, but potentially for all of DeFi.
What specifically is the SEC likely looking at? What's the core issue?
It almost certainly comes back to the SUSHI token, and specifically that SUSHI mechanism we just praised. The likely argument from the SEC, based on how they've approached other cases, is that SUSHI, particularly when staked as XSUSHI, functions as an unregistered security. Why? Because, as we discuss, holding XUSHI entitles you to a share of the protocol's revenue with trading fees. The SEC sees that as being very similar to receiving dividends from a stock.
And if it's like a stock, it falls under securities law, meaning it should have been registered.
That's the likely argument. If the SEC successfully makes that case against SushiSwap, it could set a huge precedent. It would fundamentally challenge how nearly all DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations that have some kind of revenue share or value accrual mechanism for token holders, can operate legally in the U.S.
Wow. So Sushi is kind of on the front lines of a major legal battle for the entire industry.
They really are. It forces them to innovate and grow while constantly looking over their shoulder at this massive legal threat.
And speaking of the pressure to innovate quickly, that seems to have led to some security stumbles, too.
Yes, they're not immune to tech risk, especially when moving fast. There was a notable $3.3 million exploit in April 2023. It targeted a specific contract rotor processor 2, ironically an earlier version of the price routing system that apparently hadn't been fully audited before deployment. It highlights a systemic risk. When you're pushing out complex code very quickly across many chains, sometimes security practices might lag and users end up paying the price.
Right, the classic move fast and break things approach has real costs in DeFi. Finally, we can't ignore the sheer market pressure they're under, can we?
Not at all. They are in a constant, fierce battle for market share. They're fighting giants like Uniswap, which still dominates pure trading volume on many chains. And you have strong competitors on other chains like PancakeSwap on BNB chain. While SushiSwap is impressively multi-chain, they're overall total value locked. The total amount of money deposited in their system has dropped quite significantly from its peak, which was maybe around $9 billion. It's much lower now. It shows they're struggling to retain that core liquidity and user base despite expanding everywhere. Staying relevant requires near-flawless execution and constant innovation, which, as we said, is tough with that leadership instability. #Tag6. Final summary and provocative thought.
Okay, let's try to tie all these threads together. Give our listener that quick 1 or 2 sentence summary. What is SushiSwap today, with all its complexities?
All right. SushiSwap is a remarkably resilient, community-driven financial ecosystem. It offers a broad suite of DeFi tool swaps, lending, bridging, connected by smart tech like Bento Box, and it operates across more than 40 blockchains. But it's constantly walking this tightrope, balancing aggressive innovation and expansion against, well, chronic internal leadership issues and a very serious, still unresolved regulatory threat from the SEC that questions its core model.
It really is a project where the drama feels just as significant as the technology itself.
Absolutely. And that leads nicely into our final provocative thought for you to consider. SushiSwap isn't slowing down its ambition. Their roadmap for potentially 2025 includes launching really complex new products, things like SUSA, which is meant to be a decentralized perpetual futures exchange, and Blade, a new type of automated market maker designed to resist MEV or value extraction. So the question is, will the intense pressure to actually deliver on this very ambitious roadmap finally force the decentralized community to find the stable, unified leadership it's arguably lacked for 5 years? Or will the ambition outrun the governance structure, maybe leading straight into the next crisis?
That's a really potent question. Can the ambition force stability? Something definitely to think about. You know, this is a great point to quickly pause and remind our listeners of something.
That's right. If you're enjoying how we break down these complex projects into simple pieces, and if you want more reviews just like this one, well, make sure you subscribe to our channel, CryptoBox. We do all the complex research digging through the weeds so you don't have to.
It's exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of SushiSwap. We'll see you next time.